96 FM, good morning. It's Clarsey and Lisa here on this Tuesday morning, December 10. It's 21 to 8 now.
Christmas is a time that a lot more people get out on the road, and so it seems like a good chance to check in with the CEO of the Australian Road Safety Foundation, Russell White. Good morning, Russell.
Welcome, Russ.
Good morning, Lisa. Clarsey, how you doing, guys?
Good.
Good, mate.
Elephant in the room, first of all. Our road toll is currently atrocious.
Yeah, we've got a fairly large amount of work to do, I think, if we're going to start to alter the trend that we're seeing in road safety, right around the country, quite frankly, where there just seems to be a disproportionate increase in the level of road trauma that we're seeing right across the board. So a whole stack of reasons probably for that, which we're still trying to ascertain from a research standpoint. But I think certainly the trends that we've been seeing, especially in recent times, are particularly worrying.
Russell, in 2024, are people still on their phones whilst driving a car? We see them everywhere. We're all using our phones a lot. Is that still a major issue?
Clarsey, I actually think distraction is probably the biggest thing we're going to be dealing with in terms of a road safety space for the foreseeable future. And I say that because not everybody will choose to drink drive, not everybody will choose not to wear a seatbelt, but every one of us has a device either in our pocket, on our wrist, and because we've sort of become so conditioned now to this always being connected and available, there is a downside to that with being on the road, and that applies to a pedestrian equally as it applies to a driver. Or a rider. So distraction is a massive thing. So it's one of our key messages about staying focused and just making sure the phone's not in reach.
I've always thought that distraction, and even pre-phones, just distraction in general is the most dangerous thing on the roads, more so than speed or anything else. What are your thoughts on, a lot of people would like to see a lot more police presence on the road? What are your thoughts on that, Russell?
Yeah, I think we've got to be honest, I think we've got to go back to the future a little bit. I think, there's no doubt that there's a place for covert, cameras and things like that. I think there's a role for that for sure. But I think if we go back to the old days, you've got to remember that, if you saw a police officer, it did change your behaviour.
True.
But having said that too, I think we've also then got to have a bit of a readjustment in terms of how we view the law, how we view respect for other people, because there's also been a bit of a thing that's changed since COVID finished, and there is a definite change in sort of attitudes towards responsibility, compliance, and even looking after your other people around you. So one of the theories that's happening in the road safety world at the moment is what's happened post-pandemic, because not just again in Australia but around the world, there's been a cultural change in the way that people are performing on the road. Now, whether that was because we weren't match fit for a while, we didn't drive very much for a while, or whether something else has changed, but we've just sort of started arcing up against, I guess, a sense of community. So there's some interesting work being done in that space at the moment, but I would also, again, suggest, as we said at the start there, that, police enforcement, more people, more cars on the road, more visible policing is also part of that solution.
I am hearing a lot of toots in traffic right now, Russ, that people being impatient with each other, and the anger just seems to be just below the surface when people are driving.
Well, yeah, because something's happened, and again, when I talk to people right around the country, I generally start off with a question. What are you seeing on the road? Are you seeing more aggression? Are you seeing less tolerance? Are you seeing more people, blatantly breaking road rules? And just about every hand in the room goes up. So again, starts to ask the question, if we're going to fix road safety, what are we going to do that's going to shine the light on the personal role we all play? Because I think sometimes you'll say to people in the street, who's responsible for road safety? And they'll say, it's the government or the police. And whilst that's true,
answer.
Well, they're part of it, but it's the community. It's us. It's the choices we make. So quite often when a crash occurs, it's because someone's made a mistake. Someone's had a deliberate act or a practiced act that they just don't realise what the consequence that's going to be. So one of the things we're pushing for is a cultural shift for people to understand that if we want to see these road toll numbers come down, the keys rest with us. It's not something we can outsource. And so an individual, your personal choices can make a huge difference.
Oh, I mean, people so often seem to forget they're behind the wheel of a gigantic, heavy, lethal weapon. And I don't think that a lot of people don't take their driver's license serious enough. And I still think that driver's licenses are handed out too easily. I don't think that everyone should be behind the wheel of a car, but that's just me, Russell. What do you think of the new red P-platers rule about one friend in the car?
Well, I think it sort of brings things into line. There's been peer group restrictions in various states around Australia, for a while, and I'm sort of a little bit surprised it's taken that long to get it into play. But I do think it helps. I mean, there's no doubt you've got to sort of look at, the way that especially young guys can carry on sometimes. The more people you've got in the car, obviously there's going to be more people affected if something happens. But it also takes away that little bit of a peer pressure type of thing to maybe start pushing the barriers a little bit. So I'm certainly supportive of passenger restrictions for P-platers for sure.
Yeah. Russell, we call this time of year the silly season. We don't want people being silly, but a lot of the workplace functions that are on now will be replaced with family functions soon. Is one important thing that people don't be afraid to be a bit of a party pooper and just reminding people, so not just looking after themselves, but reminding family and friends?
Oh, 100%. I think one of the challenges that often, historically has been, people have been afraid to speak up. And I think we've got to start being a bit more vocal about that, because I think Lisa touched on a point you raised before. Yeah. The risk that's there, even though you're on the road every day, I think unfortunately we tend to get a bit of apathy happening. Yeah. But I think you've got to start looking at the focus of that. It's the number one thing that's going to kill an Australian child between 1 and 14. It's the number one thing that's causing death and injury in a workplace. Yeah. It's second only to use suicide in the 15 to 25-year-old age bracket. So there's a huge amount of responsibility that comes with having that piece of plastic with your photograph on it.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, well, Russell, let's hope that everyone keep things in perspective as they're driving on the roads this Christmas. Remember that there's always a lot more people on the road as well, especially on the country roads. Let's hope that everyone keeps a cool head.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Let's be present, stay calm and collected.
Yeah.
Be present, 100%. Yeah. Look as far ahead as you can, drive to conditions, and just make sure you get to your destination safely.
Yeah. And the old thing about, better late than not at all.
Yeah, pull over if you're tired and all that stuff.
Yes, is very true. Thank you, Russell. 100%. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year.
Good to catch up, mate.
And a safe one on the road.
You too, guys. All the best. Drive safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russell.
Bye.
Yeah, it's that time of year, isn't it? You would hope we won't be seeing any kind of repeat of those recent numbers we've seen. It's very disturbing.
Horrendous. 7 people in one weekend.
And at least 2 motorbikes. Yeah, awful. It's 14 to 8 now.